Yo, my peoples, what's up? My name is Jason. Thank you so much for joining me for another Dice Tower review. I am looking at Sentinels of the Multiverse Definitive Edition today. This is from Greater Than Games. This is the 10th anniversary reiteration of Sentinels of the Multiverse. This one reproduces much of the content of the old core box, but giving you a little bit more in here. You have Heroes, superhero-esque 3 to 5 player game, fully cooperative, where we are going to be able to swap in all these heroes and take on bad guys and bad gals and bad robots and all sorts of bads. And also there's an environment deck messing things up, so you have this rock'em sock'em back and forth card-based experience. It is based on the old game from 10 years ago, and this is really heavy. I have everything for the old edition, including this collector's box that I got on Kickstarter. So I'm looking at it going, they're re-releasing what? They are going to make me buy new versions of what? So I would like to break that down for you. I want to talk about whether this game is good. If you've never experienced the game before, I want to talk about it. If you didn't enjoy the first game, does the second version do enough to entice you in? Or if you're in and you enjoy it, is it worth making the switch over to the new version? I'll talk about all of that in the next little bit of video, and then I'll come back and give my final judgment. So without further ado, let's go to the videotape. So before I get into what the Definitive Edition does, if you've never played Sentinels before, let me give the briefest of overviews as to the general flow of the game. It is a fully cooperative game for 3 to 5 players. I have a 3-player game laid out, 3 heroes versus a AI enemy. You have your oversized character card. So this would be Tachyon. Tachyon is kind of a takeoff of the Flash. Legacy is a takeoff of Superman, on and on and on. We're going to have a fixed deck of cards, so this does not change. You are going to be exploring the same deck each time you play the heroes, but they are different types of cards in each individual deck, so the game will play out a little bit differently depending on your play style and what the enemy is offering. So now I'm facing off against Omnitron, who is Ultron. Not all. I mean, you get the evocative sense of what they're going for. Anyway. So you would consult at the beginning of every round the enemy, and you would it just tells you exactly what to do. Start phase, play phase, end phase, to try to do something to the enemies. So then it would do something at the start, and then it would play a card. You would do whatever the card says, and at the end phase, there's usually some damage incoming. So then Omnitron over here is going to do whatever he does. And then the heroes all have health trackers, individual health trackers, so that we can keep track of the damage and the effects and all that kind of stuff. I'll talk about the effects in just 1 minute, just talking about basic interactions now. So that's the enemy. After that comes the hero turn. And the hero turn goes into a pretty simple rhythm, play, power, draw. I will get to that elaborations of that rhythm in just a second, but for this basic explanation, play, power, draw. You have your hand of cards, and there's different types of cards. So some are like items and ongoing cards. You are going to play them, and they are going to gradually build your power up. Other heroes and other cards in your deck are going to be one-shot items. So then you would play that, and then play would move on. So you would play your one card. You would do your power. In this particular case, Ra deals 1 target 2 fire damage. Doesn't get more basic than that. Every character is going to have that power, and then they're going to draw to replenish their hand, and then pass turn. Play, power, draw, play, power, draw, play, power, draw, and then it's the environment's turn. Every scenario, every time you face off against a bad guy or a bad gal, you are going to go up against the environment. So the environment will affect everyone, and part of good play is knowing what's in the environment deck, getting the environment to affect the creature more than the heroes, but that's not always possible. Either way, know that the environment deck is a wild card that changes up the basic rhythm of enemy versus heroes. And around we go. We are going to deal damage to the monster. We're going to have receive damage back. I should probably show you this. This is how you track monster damage. You used to have lots and lots of tokens to track with that. Now there's these dials. They're pretty cool. Game end condition, beat the monster. Game lose condition, have your heroes die. Pretty simple. So there are so many rules and exceptions and things that go into a game of Sentinels, but I think that gives a basic idea of what you're getting. So let me talk about 2 ways in which the definitive edition is different than the original edition and what it is trying to do in terms of improving upon what has been done. If definitive edition does anything, it improved and made the heroes better, especially on the hero side. And I think it did it along 2 tracks, and I'll talk about them separately. Here I'll talk about how Definitive Edition leaned into the theme of each of the heroes and used that theme to make them mechanically more interesting. Nowhere is that more true than with Bunker. Bunker was a sentimental favorite of fans of the old game. However, mechanically, pretty flat. So the way the old Bunker worked was they needed to draw cards. So they had a power draw card. That sounds pretty good. One of the cards they used to do that was the recharge mode. Bunker operated on modes. You play them and, you kind of, you sacrifice a lot. Like here you sacrifice, your mode card. You can't play cards, use powers, but you can draw an additional card during the phase. So you kind of like slow buildup of cards. For the sake of cards like this, the Omni Cannon, at the start of your turn, you may put up to 3 cards from your hand beneath this card. So, so if you have a large hand of cards, stick them under the Omni Cannon, get that going over a couple of turns, and you could do some real damage. However, that required having the Omni Cannon out and having turn after turn to just build up cards, and maybe turns where you didn't do very interesting things. Maybe all you had was a flat cannon, and it's like, wham, you did 3 damage instead of 2. So you spent all this time to do this awesome thing, and when it went off, it was great. But getting there was a little bit of a chore, and if the enemy wiped your cards, then Bunker was unfortunately boned. How did they improve? And so here is the new Bunker. Already, just from the power itself, you see an improvement. Draw 1 card or put the top card of your deck under 1 ordnance in play. Ordnance being weaponry. Cards like this, more variety of weapons. And in a thematic kind of moment, it's almost like locking and loading. There was also other cards that they introduced, such as this card right here. During your play phase, you may put 1 card from your trash under 1 ordnance card, and also end phase, put 1 card of your deck under 1 ordnance card. Load, load, load. And just lots of ways to load, and especially, look at this sweet recharge mode. Remember in the last edition, it let you draw an extra card. Here, draw 4 additional cards. Just let's get going. And in a way, that is thematic. So you're going to load. Once you have the guns loaded, you're going to see powers that say right here, destroy all cards under this card. Bunker deals X amount of energy, or destroy 2 cards, or something like that, where you're loading and you're shooting and you can get that going pretty fast. And it's actually pretty cool to have turns where you have like 4 or 5 cards, load, 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 boom, boom, boom. And that happens fairly quickly. Still sensitive to board wipes. I'll get to having the equipment destroyed in just a second, but I loved how they reimagined Bunker. And so many of the heroes in the first edition, it was play a card, use a power, draw. Play, power, draw. Play, power, draw. Very lockstep. And which could be cool because depending on what the card you play and how your deck comes together, but it felt very constrained in terms of, you had 3 things that you did. And in the case of Absolute Zero, they were desperate to find certain cards. You had to find these 2 cards in order for Absolute Zero to function. So then that was at least 2 turns if you were blessed with having these 2 cards in order to play them. And then over the course of other turns, he didn't get increased play, so he slowly rolled his cards out. Eventually, by turn 7 or 8 or 9 or something further than that, he would get powerful cards like this. Cold Snap at the start of your turn, deal 1 cold damage to everything, which is amazing. And also Impale. deal one target 2 cold damage every turn. Get those buffs. Amazing damage output from Absolute Zero, but it took a long time to get there, and it was very vulnerable to having his stuff destroyed before it even got going. So now here we have the new Absolute Zero. Same power, still works the same way, basically. Wants to deal fire damage to himself in order to deal all that cold damage to his opponents. But check out what they did with the armor that he had. Before, you just played it and it did its thing. Now, after this card is played, play another card. So both cards do that. So then you could theoretically have both your pieces of armor out in one turn. Or you have other more resources to play more cards. Summon one item card, which is dig it out of your deck and play it. Or draw one card, collect one item card. Collect means just have it in your hand. But one item card, he doesn't just have these two. He has plenty of cool items. And so you see how, in the first edition, it's almost like the designers wanted to keep you in that play, power, draw paradigm. Here, play, power, draw. They really loosened that up. He doesn't have Absolute Zero, that is. Doesn't have those cards that just generate raw power, so you might not get that build-up effect of like 50 damage at once. But they have replaced that with clever card play, which I think is more rewarding for a gamer who's now used to a very complex level of card play. One of the most annoying things that the old version of Sentinels did was kill your stuff. Kill your cards, kill your ongoings and equipment. With cards like this from Omnitron's deck, Sedative Fletchets, destroy all hero ongoing cards. So much for building up. The reworked villains, and I find that a lot of villains have cards like this. So instead, this is the same card, a Fletchet Launcher, attacking Haka, and Exterminate, it deals damage based on the number of ongoing cards a certain hero has. So it's kind of a big trade-off. And then Fabricate is a thing that Omnitron does in a new version. It will destroy H-2 hero ongoing cards, H being the number of players in the game. So this could be destroy all hero ongoing cards, could be like 5, 6, 8. Here, it's a pretty hard cap on how many destroy, a welcome change. However, for those of you wondering about Citizen Dawn's infamous card, Devastating Aurora, destroy everything. You got 2 copies of it. It's still there. And so finally, the biggest question that a lot of people are going to have in their minds is, how is the tracking? Did they improve the tracking? +1 damage dealt, -1 damage taken, +1, -1, +1, add. The arithmetic and the management of the game could be overwhelming for some. It didn't really change that fundamental characteristic of the game. I feel like it's just baked into the system. I asked Christopher Bedell about it, and he's like, you know what? That's just the game. So they gave you tokens, and there's lots of tokens. This character doesn't take any damage whatsoever. This character doesn't deal any damage, and on down the line. They stack a little bit, so if you want to give somebody -5 damage taken, then go ahead and stack them all up. But the arithmetic is still there, so if that's what puts you off the game, then it hasn't really changed. So that was Definitive Edition at the table, as well as some comparisons to the previous edition. And I'll start off with the worst part, which is the thing that I showed right there at the end of the overview, which is all of that tracking, all that arithmetic, the management and the logistics of the game, running it, and tracking all the pluses and the minuses and different types of damage, and that's all still there. A little bit of, a shaven through it. It's a tiny little bit streamlined, but to call it streamlined relative to what a lot of gamers are looking for would kind of be misleading. It's the same tracking for the most part. And if that's not what you liked about the first one, this edition did not really change that. So, sorry fans, if you didn't like the first version, wondering about the second version, I don't know that there's much there for you. So there are people who, enjoyed the first version well enough, but had some little bit of difficulties. Many of them went over to a game like Marvel Champions. Marvel Champions, superhero-based card game, living card game. You have tons of heroes at this point as I'm recording the video. So that's a little bit of a comparison point, Marvel Champions versus Sentinels. For me, I think it's a taste thing. Fixed deck versus deck construction. So there's going to be people that love the deck construction. I want my Spider-Man that's aggressive, and I want my Spider-Man with these items and all that kind of thing. Here, I want my legacy, and I want my whoever else the heroes are, but I want a fixed deck. I want to get to know it intimately and go. And that's a preference thing. My preference is for fixed deck, so that's me. And I'm going to tell everybody a little bit of secret. I'm kind of tired of Marvel. I know. I know. Commenters come at me. But I'm worn out. To be honest with you, I mean, you just get so much of this stuff. The Champions did an excellent game. And it's probably a better game for 1 or 2 players if you just want to play one hero. Sentinels, brand new story, well, 10-year-old story, but the original one. And, you know, you have to play the 3 characters, but I'm okay with playing 3 characters. And I love playing the fixed deck. So for me, that is the deal. Now the big question. Is it worth going with the definitive edition if you already are in on the old edition? The big question, at least for me. And having played the new game, having played the reworked decks, I showed you the biggest ones, which were at Absolute Zero and Bunker, and there have been a bunch of the other ones that have been reworked as well. I have to say, I would have a real difficulty going back. The only thing that would draw me to the old game is because I've spent so much money. If this were software, if this were iOS, I would just get a upload to Sentinels 2.0, and you wouldn't even think about it. No one would think about it. But it's a product, so you have to look at your old version and go, do I really want to be in on the new version? I mean, that's up to you. For me, I think that if it is something that you can swing, or maybe you can kind of get something for your old version or whatever it is, no question, this is a better game. If you're out there and you're wondering which version of Sentinels do I get, what's going on, Definitive Edition, I think, is better in every single way. And I speak as a super fan who had all the old stuff. So we are going to go, bam, 9.5 seal of excellence on the Definitive Edition. Very, very happy to have it in my life. Is it a perfect game? Absolutely not. Tracking out the wazoo. I don't know what they're going to do with the later bosses, because they do talk about re-releasing basically everything. And some of those later bosses are really complex. We'll see what happens there. But for the raw, rock'em sock'em fun, for the fixed decks, for the cooperation, man, I can't beat Sentinels. It is the best card game, one of the best card games I've ever played. This is Jason reminding you, if you change your mind, you can change your world. So until next time, later everybody.